Hey, how's it going, everybody? Mike Weber here, your Los Angeles real estate broker, here with your market update for the beginning of June 2023. So there's a lot going on out there in the real estate market as usual. Some notable things that I'll share with you guys that I think are of importance to know is if you are a landlord or you plan to have tenants in the future. Before COVID, right around the time when COVID hit, we kind of had this bill come out. I think it was 1482, if I remember correctly, that basically instituted a whole bunch of new tenant protections and tenant rights that kind of made it a lot more difficult on landlords to evict tenants, to get properties back, to do repairs, those sorts of things. California, it looks like, just passed another bill, SB 567, which ultimately is going to strengthen those protections, make it so tenants can now go after landlords legally for trying to get access to the property. So a whole plethora of new considerations and concerns for trying to rent out a property and for having tenants. If you're not on my mailing list, on my email, definitely reach out to me. I'll add you to that. I'm going to send some information about that out today. But anyways, definitely something to look into if you do manage properties. You'll certainly want to be apprised of those changes and make sure that you're following the letter of the law on all of that stuff. In addition, obviously, we've had these high rates for a while now. Prices, although they have come down to some extent, they haven't really come down enough to offset the increasing rates, the higher property taxes, increasing costs of owning property, utilities, etc. So of course, we're seeing continued effort from both governments and from private companies to find ways to kind of bridge that gap, allow people to be able to get into properties. And two things of recent note came up. One, we had a program called California Dream that came out. Essentially, it was like a loan that had no interest, no payment for down payment funds and closing costs up to 20%. That allowed people to buy properties in parts of California or in California with basically no down payment, no money out of pocket. The money on that ran out extremely quickly. Within days, all the money was accounted for, and there was a huge boost in the market. But I do suspect this program, as more money becomes available, however they're going to get it, is going to continue on. They definitely plan to do a lot more of this in the future. So we'll see what happens with that. However, I was reading an article recently about Rocket Mortgage, and it seems they've come out with a program somehow that's going to allow people to put only 1% down to buy a home. And apparently there's going to be no mortgage insurance on that either, which is going to significantly reduce the payment that they're going to have. Of course, it's not going to be as good as the California Dream program, but even so, certainly not bad to be able to get into a home. And in addition, you used to be able to do low down payment loans like FHA financing, but those are a bit more difficult. A lot of condos don't qualify. There's a lot of provisions that make it a little bit more tricky, etc. Whereas it seems with this Rocket Mortgage 1% down loan, it's just going to apply across the board to any property type. So if you have a low down payment or you know somebody who does that wants to get into a property, this may be a program to look into. Now, real estate market in general, a lot has been changing. We're definitely seeing an extreme slowdown just across the board in all activity, but amazingly, prices are still relatively high. They haven't come down as much as I would have expected, all things considered. I'm going to change the format of these videos. I'm no longer going to cover the South Bay. I'm just going to do Los Angeles County. Obviously, I cover most of Los Angeles County, and that should be sufficient, I think, moving forward. So let's go ahead and jump into the data for LA County. All right, so starting out, first off, we see that median home prices, they're only down 6.7% from a year over year standpoint. So like I said earlier, they're somehow, hanging in there, even though we're seeing a lot of stuff kind of sit on the market, not sell, being pulled off the market, etc. And of course, that's most likely because of the very low inventory. So the properties that are still selling are maybe more skewed towards the cream of the crop, the higher end, and those properties are still fetching, pretty good amounts of money compared to where we were, say, a year ago or 2 years ago. But when we look at closed sales, we see how little activity is going on. We're down 20 22% from a year over year standpoint, which already is comparing to a very low base year a year ago. So the amount of closed sales activity that's making it to the closing table through escrow is very, very low. And even worse, when we look at pending sales, we're down 46% year over year. I mean, the graph is horrible looking. To be in the middle of the year and have such low homes pending in escrow right now just shows you how little is actually taking place out there, obviously as a result of the higher interest rates and the low inventory that we're experiencing. In fact, if you go back just a couple years at this time of year, we experienced pending sales around 4,600, and right now we're sitting at 2,925. So I mean, less than half of what we would generally see kind of at this sort of time of year. So definitely a lot quieter than it was during those boom years a couple years ago when interest rates were extremely low. The last thing we'll look at is active listings. Those are also extremely, extremely low. The trend on the chart has just been down, 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 year after year after year. We're down 23.7% from a year over year standpoint. And if you go back just a couple years, we were probably around, say, 17,000 for this time of year. And so now we're down to about 9,000. So again, a huge precipitous drop in the number of active listings that are out there on the market. And it feels like it. I mean, when you're out there driving around, you don't see quite as many signs. Obviously, not as many people are buying, etc. The good news is homes are still selling. Since there is low inventory, a lot of what's getting listed is actually selling at this point. People are still buying. It's just not as crazy as it was a couple years ago. So guys, I hope this information was useful. How can I help you with real estate in Los Angeles? Reach out to me. Let me know. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do so now. Click the thumbs up button. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.